The untold history of how Israel and Palestine ended up in a war. The ongoing war between Israel and Palestine is at its worst. Did you know that these two countries have been at loggerheads as far back as the time of Hitler? Before we dive into the very beginning of what caused the war between Israel and Palestine, let us have a quick recount of the most recent events. 2023 has seen several attacks flare in the region. Just in January of 2023, Israeli forces raided the Palestinian city of Jenin, and the next day, a Palestinian gunman attacked Israelis in retaliation. In May, Israel launched airstrikes across the Gaza Strip that set up a 5-day bout of violence. There have equally been drone attacks on the West Bank and rampages through Palestinian villages. On October 7, militants from Gaza belonging to Hamas fired rockets into Israeli towns and then broke the border fence, a surprise coordinated assault on Israel. More than 1,400 people, including civilians and soldiers, were killed or injured. The Hamas militants also took 199 hostages according to Israeli authorities. In response to the attack, Israel has dropped 6,000 bombs on Gaza, and the Israeli Defense Forces has told civilians in Gaza to leave their residential areas immediately for their safety. But this has not been easy since all crossings out of Gaza have been shut. As the situation seems to worsen, the death toll continues to rise, with statistics reporting over 6,400 Palestinian fatalities, 300 plus Israeli fatalities, and hundreds of thousands injured. A lot of people have the question of how this conflict started. The roots of the conflict and mistrust are deep and complex. Let us go back to the very beginning of the war. Throughout the course of human history, the geographical location of the modern states of Israel and Palestine has been conquered by many ancient empires and occupied by several civilizations and peoples of different faiths. As a result, the land has hosted various ethnic groups. Prehistorically, after waves of early humans out of Africa, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were established, entities that were central to the origins of the Jewish and Samaritan peoples as well as the Abrahamic faith tradition. This gave rise to Judaism, Samaritanism, Christianity, Islam, Druzeism, Baha'ism, and a variety of other religious movements. Following the Ottoman conquest in 1517, the land was part of the Ottoman Empire until its collapse during the period of World War I. After the war, the area came under British mandate. In 1840, one prominent Zionist called for the restoration of the Jews. The Zionists sought to establish a homeland for the Jews in this area. In 1917, the British government issued a declaration endorsing the idea of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This led to an influx of Jewish immigrants into the region, which grew significantly due to the growth of anti-Semitism in Europe. The Arab population in Palestine opposed the increase of the Jewish population because the new immigrants refused to lease or sell land to Palestinians or hire them. Relations between the Jewish and Arab populations deteriorated and the hostility between the two groups intensified. Jewish resistance organizations united and established the Jewish Resistance Movement, which coordinated armed attacks against the British military. Jewish leaders also concentrated their efforts on illegal immigration and began to organize massive immigration of European Jewish refugees to Palestine using small boats operating in secrecy, many of which were captured at sea by the British and imprisoned in camps in Cyprus. About 70,000 Jews were brought to Palestine in this way. Following World War II and the Holocaust, international pressure mounted for the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. This led to a United Nations vote in 1947 to partition the land in the British Mandate of Palestine into Jewish Israel and Arab Palestine and the city of Jerusalem. The Arab state was supposed to comprise roughly 4,300 square miles, 11,000 square kilometers, and would contain a tiny Jewish population. The Jewish state was supposed to be roughly 5,700 square miles, 15,000 square kilometers, in size and was supposed to contain a sizable Arab minority population. Jerusalem and Bethlehem were to be put under the control of the United Nations. The Jews disliked losing Jerusalem, which had a majority Jewish population at that time. However, most of the Jews in Palestine accepted the plan. The Arab leadership argued that it violated the rights of the majority of the non-Jewish people in Palestine. Arab leaders also argued a large number of Arabs would be trapped in the Jewish state. Neither the Palestinians nor the neighboring Arab countries accepted the founding of modern Israel. Fighting between Jewish armed groups, some of which the British regarded as terrorist organizations, and Palestinians escalated until the armies of Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, and Syria invaded after Israel declared independence in May 1948. About 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or fled the territory captured by Israel and were never allowed to return. Palestinians called the exodus and eradication of much of their society inside Israel the Nakba, or catastrophe, and it remains the traumatic event at the heart of their modern history. Arabs who remained in Israel as citizens were subject to official discrimination. They were placed under military rule for nearly 2 decades, which deprived them of many basic civil rights. Much of their land was expropriated and Arab-Israeli communities were deliberately kept poor and underfunded. In 1964, a coalition of Palestinian groups founded the Palestine Liberation Organization under the leadership of Yasser Arafat to pursue armed struggle and establish an Arab state in place of Israel. The PLO drew international attention to its cause with high-profile attacks and hijackings. In 1967, Israel launched what it said was a preemptive defensive war against Jordan, Egypt, and Syria, as they appeared to be preparing to invade. The attack caught Arab governments by surprise and saw Israel achieve rapid victories, including seizing the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the Golan Heights from Syria, and the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan. The Six-Day War was a spectacular military success for Israel. Its capture of all of Jerusalem and newly acquired control over the biblical lands called Judea and Samaria in Israel opened the way to the construction of Jewish settlements in the West Bank, which became central to the conflict. Israel placed the Arab population of the West Bank under military rule, which is enforced to this day. Islamist groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood had previously avoided armed conflict and were largely dedicated to working for a more religious society. But that position shifted under the leadership of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, a charismatic quadriplegic living in Gaza who helped found several Islamist organizations in Gaza, which won support by establishing a network of social services including schools, clinics, and a library. Yassin used support for his organization as the foundation for the formation of Hamas in 1987 in alliance with other Islamists. Israel regarded the Palestinian population under its control as largely quiescent even as it went on expanding Jewish settlements in Gaza and the West Bank and expropriating Arab land. Palestinians were also treated as a cheap source of largely manual labor inside Israel. That illusion was shattered in 1987 as young Palestinians rose up. The uprising was marked by mass stone throwing. The Israeli army responded with large-scale arrests and collective punishments. Numerous peace negotiations have taken place over the years, but a lasting peace agreement has remained elusive. The conflict has been marked by violence, including terrorist attacks by Palestinian militants and military operations by Israel. Arab nations led by Egypt and Syria, at different times, have found themselves as part of the war. There have been a multitude of UN resolutions. The Oslo Accord, the first of 2 pacts signed in 1993, set out a peace process. The United States and other countries have played a key role in attempting to broker peace, but many obstacles remain, including the issue of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, the status of Jerusalem, and the ultimate fate of Palestinian refugees.